The book of Deuteronomy is a series of messages given by Moses on the Plains of Moab, east of Jordan. Moses in this book repeats the law that he was given at Sinai and that he first related to Israel at Sinai. At the start, Moses gathers the people together to hear the law. He knows that for them to learn God's word and to observe God's word, they must hear God's word. The events of Mount Moab or Sinai are recounted by Moses. He reminds Israel of the covenant between God and Israel, and he reminds them of the 10 Commandments, that this covenant extends to later generations than just those who were there at that time, and how even that generation trembled in fear in the presence of the fire, the smoke, and the thunder coming from the mountain. Remember, this is a time before Gutenberg invents the printing press. So with the giving of the 10 Commandments, heads of families were urged. They were responsible to instruct those under their care in the law. Warnings were made against serving other gods. Yahweh was the God of Israel. He had brought them out. In essence, the people were reminded of the Lord's expectations. A cursory view of the Old Testament clearly shows that Israel could be disobedient. In fact, the first tablets of the 10 Commandments were smashed by Moses when he came down from the mountain and found Aaron helping the people fall into idolatry. So Moses, who was not going to enter the promised land with them, Moses, like any transformational leader, had to refocus the people on their mission and values. And so he rhetorically asks, "Now, Israel, what does the Lord expect from you?" They had been taught the commandments, so they knew the answer to Moses' question. Respect or fear the Lord. Walk in his ways, love him, serve him, and keep his word. Let's pause here to put the next part of our lesson into some context. Israel is preparing to cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land. Moses has finished reviewing the law, and he and the elders are exhorting the people that they must keep God's law. Moses is nearing the end of his life. In Moses' pre-crossing speech, he tells them that when they cross over into the Promised Land, they were to find some large rocks and coat those rocks with limestone. Now, lime is calcium oxide, which is used to make whitewash or plaster. The stones would be coated with these and turned white. They needed to be made white because Moses wanted them to write the law on these very rocks in a very clear, distinctive manner. While lime may be easy to produce now, it isn't so easy back in this time. Burning 2 tons of limestone will produce about a ton of lime. Cremating a human body will produce about 4 pounds of lime dust. Either way, the monument would take a dedication and a focus for the people to accomplish. Then and now, it is easy for us over time to forget our history, to forget the journey that we have come over, to lose focus on the values and the mission. Moses wants these large white monuments so that generation after generation will know the law, that they will remember and not lose focus on the mission and the values, and that they will remember God's hands and blessings in their journey, and they will remember their covenant and their vow to obey the law. Moses directed the white rock structure to be placed on Mount Ebal, making it easy for Israel to see and remember the words of the Lord. On Mount Ebal, they were to build an altar. The stones of the altar were not to be cut, with no iron to stabilize them. This altar of rocks where people would be making their offerings to God, where they would eat and rejoice, along with the white stones clearly displaying the words of God. This whole site must focus people not on the craftsmanship of man, but rather on the power of an omnipotent and merciful God. I remember as we were building a new part of our church, my pastor once said that the main purpose, the only purpose for anything in the church is to focus people's attention on God. Moses wants to focus these people on God and the covenant they have with God. And so he directs them to say, when you enter into the promised land, that they are to carry out a ceremony to visualize the transformation. The curse represented on one side and the blessing represented on the other. Some of the tribes of Israel would stand in front of one mountain, the others would stand in front of the other mountain, with the Levites in the middle. The two mountains will be Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Both were about the same size and the same shape. However, Gerizim was lush with trees and gardens and water, and while Mount Ebal was barren and desolate with only gray rocks. It was a perfect symbolism of the blessings and the curse, and a perfect way of helping Israel focus on God. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week. Bye.